Welcome back to another edition of Query and Schultz here on ISC Sports Network. Jake Query, Derek Schultz, proudly brought to you by, I would assume that I can say proudly brought to you by. I'm making a great assumption that WGU Indiana is proud to be sponsoring this program, but we are very proud to have them on board. Indiana.wgu.edu is the website for Indiana's accredited online university. And Derek, I'm going to be open about this factoid to open this show, and that is, total disclaimer, I guess it's a good thing the Colts had a bye week. I basically saw zero sports and paid attention to none of them this weekend.
Just so happy right now that
okay.
You're here.
You have the dumbest grin on your face. You have the cheesiest, worst smile
My
on
best
your
friend
face.
lives. Here he is.
Sure.
You could see him right now in the flesh. I give you a total pass, Jake, for not watching, I don't know what, Titans, Steelers?
Sure.
Seahawks, Cardinals?
Sure. I did see a little of that.
You did see, I know, because you went out Saturday night, against all medical advice, by the way, that you went out Saturday night. I know that you saw the thrilling Indiana-Penn State finish, which obviously we'll get to, but
okay.
I think what's neat about this is, there's nothing neat about a massive heart attack, but it really kind of puts everything into perspective. We both love sports and are very passionate about sports, but life is life, and what you went through was scary and sudden. And, all kidding aside, I know the cheese-eating grin, I'd been thinking about that all morning, how I wanted to react to start the show. I'm so happy that everything is okay. And I know I speak for millions, not only in central Indiana, but across the country and planet, that are so happy that Jay Query's still here with us.
I think we both know, Derek. And for those that do not know, and I would assume that's the majority of you, I don't know why you would, on Thursday, which is, what was Thursday, Derek? That would have been the
22nd,
maybe?
I'll look it up.
At any rate, on Thursday evening, I suffered what was labeled as a massive heart attack. I had a 100% blockage in the artery that's known as the widowmaker in your heart, and we'll get to all of that, I would presume, here over the course of the show in terms of what I felt, what all took place, and how you can make sure you're not in that same position and what led me to that position. But the reality is, Derek, I think, and I totally understand and appreciate your the grin on your face, because I think we both know that if I die, so too does your career, right?
Oh, see, it'd be mean-spirited for me now that, you've only been with us for another 96 hours here when you were on Death's Door. It'd be mean-spirited for me to bring up all the individual offers that I got, especially during our time away from each other on the radio show. So I'm not going to do that today, Jake. There's a time and place for everything. I think my star would have stayed on its same trajectory.
Okay.
But clearly, it would have been sad to see the show come to an end. And that's why, this whole recovery here, this miracle of you still being here, I think is really going to fuel the rocket ship that is this program. Not that we needed the boost, but we're barely 2 months into this thing. And now all everybody's talking about is, oh my God, Jake Query's not dead. And I think we can really kind of capitalize on that.
Now, how did you find out that I had a heart attack?
You'll love this because I know that our viewers at home have heard you talk about your mom at times for her annual wet leaves PSA.
Correct, yes.
Where you need to be cautious driving on wet leaves because it's as bad as ice. But I was in my kitchen at, I don't know, 8:15. It wasn't that late, 8 or 8:15 on Thursday night. And my wife was in the other room watching TV. And I don't have notifications on my phone for anything because they drive me crazy. But for some reason, Facebook Messenger, which is by far the thing that I check the least, I still have notifications on. I don't know if they turn themselves back on. So I get a notification, Karen Query has messaged you. And I'm like, what?
Frequent occurrence,
yeah.
right?
And, we're Facebook friends and all of that because your mom teaches at the preschool where my son attends. And obviously our parents have become very close. And I open up the message and it's hi, Derek. I just wanted to let you know Jake had a massive heart attack tonight, and he's going to be fine. P.S. We're very glad James is rejoining preschool because we just decided to re-enroll James in preschool because we were waiting for the COVID thing. So I'm sitting there like, I've got my phone, and I'm staring at it, and I must have reread that 10 times because it's so weird to see massive heart attack, but he's going to be fine, and then have the little P.S. in there like it's completely normal. Like, I should have expected something like that. So my first thought was, did she mean Lloyd, your dad? So first off, I told Ashley, and I was like, hey, I got a message from Karen that Jake had a massive heart attack. So I called my mom, and I said, hey, Mom, have you heard anything from the Queries? Thinking that she was going to say, oh, yeah, Karen contacted me, and they said, Lloyd's in the hospital. And she's like, well, no. And I said, well, Karen said that Jake had a massive heart attack. And I'm thinking, well, it can't be. And then I thought about your dad's history and your genetic history. And I thought, okay, yeah, I guess it is possible. So I texted Shannon right away. I heard back, your girlfriend, and I heard back from Shannon within the hour. And she gave me the whole rundown of everything that happened. So it was weird for me because, massive heart attack triggers something in your head. Like, okay, Jake's got a bunch of tubes and everything,
Yeah.
I was thinking, if he lives, then there are going to be all kinds of damage and repercussions and whatever. But, seeing massive heart attack and then fine in the same sentence, I was shook by the whole thing. But I'm glad that everything ended up being okay because, getting more of the details from what you went through with Shannon, came to find out that they weren't expecting anything but 100% full recovery, which thank God.
Yeah, in that moment, I mean, after it wasn't so clear for a while, but fortunately, that is indeed what we'll find out. And I want to go over a little bit, not for me, Derek, but I do think that for a lot of guys and ladies too, but for people watching, they might be able to learn something from that. I do want to talk as well about the IU, the ending of the Indiana-Penn State game, the sensational play that Purdue is getting from a young player that might be as good as Rondell Moore. Rondell Moore, I know, is an elite-level talent in open space, but David Bell is really, really good for Purdue and what they're getting out of that. And then the NFL as well. So we have a lot to talk about, but I was thinking that we would take a break, come back, and I'll kind of recap and just get everybody up to speed on what took place on Thursday and what we can learn from it. Is that fair?
Yeah.
All right, so we'll do that. Sounds good?
It's Query and Schultz. Very alive Jake Query. Yeah. Still alive Derek Schultz. ISU Sports Network. Plenty to get to next.
Indiana dairy farmers provide us with safe, pure foods for our tables. A responsibility that takes intuition, resolve, and determination to make sure their milk is good for you and delicious to taste. Their connection with our community runs deep, passed down through the generations, ensuring that milk is always available at your store. It's not easy being a dairy farmer, but the rewards have special meaning when you can feed Indiana's families every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
The drive, the take, fouled, and it goes!
Lobbing it to the back of the end zone. They're going to say it's a touchdown.
Left foot gets through. Goal for Vargas. Hamilton will score!
Welcome back. It's a miracle recovery edition of Query and Schultz. I'm Derek Schultz. Jake Query here as well. This portion of the program brought to you by our friends at St. Elmo. And this St. Elmo bourbon, which is absolutely delicious. If you have not tried it yet, I don't know what you're doing. You got to.
Make the famous Elmo Cola.
Yep, Derek. It's their straight bourbon whiskey. And give it a try simply because you love bourbon or because it's your favorite drink at St. Elmo Steakhouse. Or maybe you just need a drink because it's still 2020.
Dark cherry.
Really,
bourbon,
really good.
Vanilla beans.
Straight bourbon with natural dark cherry and bourbon vanilla beans, one of the fastest growing spirits in Indiana. Well, it's my turn to talk about it, Jake.
Okay.
Thank you. I know that you just recovered, but there's a decorum that we have to follow in the show.
Sure.
Get a bottle today at a variety of local retailers, Myers, Kroger's, Walmart's, Target's. Any of those places in central Indiana.
Fair enough. So over the weekend, aside from all the sports we're going to talk about, I do want to get to this, Derek, because I think I hate to say people can learn from it. That sounds really arrogant. But listen, folks, having a heart attack going into cardiac arrest, that is the quintessential, I don't think that'll ever happen to me thing, right? And I totally understand that. I totally get that. I'm in a unique situation, or was in a unique situation, because when I was a junior in high school, my dad had a heart attack. And my dad at that time was 49 years old. And isn't it weird, Derek, when you have memories of your parents and then you're like, wait a minute. Gosh, in that moment, my dad was blank. That's the age I am now, right?
Makes you feel old, for sure.
So my dad was 49 years old. My uncle Dwayne had his first heart attack at the age of 49. He ultimately got a heart transplant at Stanford Medical in 1985. I am 48 years old. So I knew that genetics were right there keeping a close watch on me. And because of that, I actually have taken all the precautions that I could think of to avoid my biggest fear in life. My biggest fear in life was having a heart attack, and that fear came true. It happened on Thursday night, and here were the symptoms, Derek. A couple of times prior to Thursday, I had gotten this like kind of tingling feeling in my hand, like when you ever sit on your hand the wrong way.
Your hand kind of falls asleep. Yeah, sure.
I had that sensation a couple of times in the week leading up to. But both times it was right after I had worked out. And so I thought, well, I must have like carpal tunnel, or I'm using my phone the wrong way. But I Googled several times, even though I knew the symptoms of a heart attack. I wondered if my heart was telling me something. But you obviously, Derek, have had your blood pressure taken, right?
Yep.
And whether you're sitting in one of those machines at Kroger's, for example, or whether you're at the doctor's office, when they put that cuff on your arm and tighten it. And the uncomfortable nature and that last tightness where you're like, okay, we can
yeah,
do
it sucks. It's uncomfortable for sure.
So on my friend Mac Engel, who writes for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, was in from out of town. We grew up together, Mac and I. So Mac, myself, Shannon, my girlfriend, and her former coworker and friends of ours, Sally and Jeff Sumter, were all going to meet at Blind Owl at 62nd and Bedford for dinner. So we sit down right after 6. Mac comes in, and all of a sudden, I got instantly, not gradually, it came on instantly, the feeling down my entire left arm of that blood pressure sensation. And it was not long, probably 30 seconds of sitting there with that, where I then said, and I just said it out loud, I'm having a pain in my arm, and it's really uncomfortable right now, and I'm concerned. And, there was a little bit of discussion about, your proverbial jokes, right?
Of course, yeah.
And I said, no, this is pretty serious. And then that immediately, and I'm talking, folks, this is all within 45 seconds of each other. That transition to this feeling in my sternum. So right here, literally, in between your two pectorals, right here underneath me, I had this feeling of, the only way I can describe it is it felt like two little gnomes were inside of me with Zippo lighters, lighting up. I had this flush, hot feeling in my chest, my entire chest. And Max said, do you think you want to maybe walk around for a second? And I said, I do. And we got up and walked, and I got on the sidewalk, and my legs felt like rubber. And I turned around to Mac and said, I'm having a heart attack. We need to go to the hospital. Now, perhaps the most fortuitous thing to me, and this is in no way, shape, or form, there are plenty of wonderful facilities in Indianapolis for cardiovascular care. Plenty of them. But the closest place we were to was Community North Hospital. So we get in the car, and I basically told Mac, we got to go. And Mac Engel, God love him, flew. We wasted no time. And then I started sweating. Have you seen the movie Airplane? Wonderful movie.
I know of it.
It's a great movie.
Yes.
Yeah. So in the movie Airplane, Ted Stryker is trying to land the plane, and it shows the sweat coming off of him, and then it's pouring out of him. That's what I looked like. It was unbelievable. And we got to the hospital, and Mac, as soon as we walked in, said, this guy, he's having a heart attack. And I went into this room, and Janelle and Linda were the two nurses at Community when I walked in, and they had towels, and they immediately took my shirt off of me and started toweling me off, and they were trying to get the stickers on me, the EKG stickers and all of that. And I don't know whether it was Janelle or Linda, but one of the two of them, I could see in their eyes, they're looking at the monitor behind me, the EKG monitor. And I said, what are you looking at? What are you seeing? And she said, I am seeing something of concern. And I kept saying, how bad is it? We are concerned. And I'll give them credit, Derek, because there's a compassion there, but a professionalism. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they're trained that saying, what I'm seeing is the world's worst EKG, and buddy, you got 2 minutes to live. Yeah. Probably not the right thing to say there.
No, they don't want to panic the patient. I get it.
But they were wonderful. And I knew it was bad because, and you probably can relate to this, Derek, you've done some play-by-play, right?
Yes.
So when you do play-by-play a lot, and I do play-by-play for auto racing, I was supposed to leave the next day for St. Petersburg to go to the IndyCar finale. When you do play-by-play, everything slows down, and you're kind of seeing things or anticipating what's happening. And in that moment, I kind of went into that mode, and the room slowed down for me, and I'm observing. And as I was observing, I could tell it was total organized chaos, precision, total precision. Everybody going into this mode where they knew exactly what to do, exactly how to do it, and they were doing it right with zero margin for error. But it was chaotic, okay? And Dr. Mottman, who is the cardiologist that I was lucky to have drawn his assignment, or he drew mine for the day, walked in. And he basically said to me, Derek, here's the deal. You are currently having a cardiac episode. You are having a massive heart attack. And I said, okay. And he said, so what we're going to do is, I've got my team on the way here. They're en route. They're all on call. And, of course, I'm thinking to myself, I hope they're not on call in Brownsburg.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And he said, once they all get here, I'm going to take you in. I'm going to go in through your vein with a small balloon. And my dad has been through this, so I know about angioplasty. I know about stents. You know what I mean?
The Queries are all experts on cardiac,
Correct.
What is it, episodes?
Correct,
Yeah.
Cardiac episodes. So he said, I'm going to go in with this balloon, and I'm going to clear out your artery, and you're going to feel instantly better. And I said, okay. And I said, how bad is it, Doc? And he said, we're going to get you feeling better. And I look, to Janelle and Linda and Dr. Mottman, I know I was a pain because I know this will shock you, Derek. I was asking a million questions.
Yeah, they probably would like it if you weren't talking so much when they're trying to concentrate on saving your life.
When they took me into this room to do this, Deetra, Lauren, and Tabitha were there, and their job was to get everything prepared, get everything ready for this procedure. And I was talking to them. They helped secure my phone, my keys, everything that's there. It's total chaos. And I even said to them, like, listen, I watch a lot of YouTube, and I don't want some video of me, like, talking to the Smurfs while I'm, with whatever you're putting in me on YouTube. And they were, listen, you guys were all wonderful, okay? They were all awesome. So I'm laying there, and he said, here's what we're going to do. And so, they did it. And I made it out. And about an hour later, Shannon arrived. And I was like, at that point, Derek, I almost felt like, okay, can we go back to Blind Owl now? I'm still kind of hungry.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt that. So I had, over the course of the evening, they eventually took me to my room. And I promise I'm not, folks, we're coming to the end of this, I promise, or at least for now. So they take me into my room. And that's where Enrique and Megan, who were the nurses at Community at the Heart and Vascular Hospital on the north side on Shadeland, Enrique and Megan were my two nurses overnight. And they became like my two best friends. It was like college. We just were like hanging out in my dorm room. They were awesome. Awesome. And so we're hanging out, and they did EKGs and they did follow-ups. And then the next day, of course, 7 a.m. comes, and you're kind of disappointed because their shift has ended. And you're like, well, now I got a new nursing team. Your wife is a nurse, Derek.
Yeah.
Your wife probably goes into work each day, and it's just another day at the office. And that's not to say that she doesn't take seriously the patients that she deals with. But I can't imagine that job because of the fact that for every person that they're tending to for that night, your wife is the most important person in their world. Because that's I mean, that person is they're your only like latch onto trying to live, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, especially with what we're talking about, where it's a heart hospital situation, or my wife works in trauma, so there's a lot of that too. But there are thousands of people across this city, doctors and nurses, who do this every day.
I know.
And it's insane. And it's not just, you're right, Community North is wonderful. St. Vincent's is wonderful.
Sure.
Methodist Hospital.
IU Medical,
and
yep.
yeah, any of the IU health places are unbelievable. And we're so lucky to be in this city where, you're right, you could have been downtown
Right.
and gone to one of those hospitals and still, I'm sure you'd still be here today. All of those people are so good at what they do.
Well, so I got Sandra and Kevin as my nurses on day 2, and both of them were also awesome. But here's the key point, and I apologize for taking this long to get to it. Dr. Mottman came into me on Friday and said, look, I've looked at your EKGs that we had done like at 3 in the morning and again at 7 in the morning. And he said, you had a massive heart attack that was caused by a piece of calcium or some sort of a deposit, plaque inside the artery of my heart that had eventually kind of broken itself free. And it irritated the lining of that artery, which created basically, as he called it, a pimple, for lack of a better phrase. And he said, and once that pimple burst, that pus, I know that's kind of gross, but clogged the artery. And the blood couldn't get through, and your heart's trying to push that blood through. And I said, well, when did that happen? Like, did this happen in September?
Yeah, I get what
And he
you mean.
said, it happened the moment you felt your first symptom, right then in your arm. Now, maybe that tingling I'd had in my hand was that some of that plaque buildup. He said I had about 30% buildup in that artery that became 100% buildup when that pus then filled the artery and sealed it off, okay? And he said, but Jake, here's the thing. For 20 years, folks, I have been paranoid of a heart attack. It's my biggest fear in life. And there's a sense of relief, actually, in knowing now that I've overcome that fear. It's not to say that I may not have another one. But I did everything I could to get ready for that game. That was the biggest game of my life, and I had a lot of practice. I do cardio exercise on a regular basis. For about 15 years now, I've run probably an average of 30 to 35 miles a week. I try to eat right. I'm not a big drinker, smoker, etc. He did tell me I got to cut out the cigars. That sucks. But my heart was ready for it, and it was able to buy me the time. Dr. Mottman told me that had I not come in, had I simply taken a Pepsid AC or tried to fight it off, and it was about 6:15 when Mac and I left Blind Owl, he told me a coroner would have been transporting me back downtown by 7 o'clock. And when I went in to have the procedure, he told me that I basically had a 30 to 90 second window for margin of error for them, and that they were anticipating that they were going to have to use the paddles to shock me back and bring me back to life. That's how close it was for them to free up that artery. And then once they did free up the artery, everything, it doesn't return to normal, but obviously you're out of the woods at that point. I remember I kept saying, am I out of the woods? Am I out of the woods? But here's the point. Getting your heart scanned is the easiest preventative measure. And most, if not all, of the local hospitals have that. It's very affordable. You simply go in and they scan, and they can look at whether or not you have that blockage and you have any issues or have any problems. It's my hope for all of you that if that position or situation presents itself, that wherever you go, that you receive the kind of unbelievable, compassionate, totally on the ball, precise expertise like I got at the Heart Hospital at Community North on North Shadeland. They were unbelievable, and they saved my life. And all I ask is that if you are in a situation where you think you might also be at risk, that you simply get a scan or you simply be preventative. Because when the big game arrives, you want to make sure that your game plan and the schemes you've come up with are the right one. And, Derek, when it all comes down to it and you need a 2-point conversion, you can send your quarterback sweeping wide to the left and still come up short of the pylon. And if you've worked hard enough, they'll give you the 2 points anyway. And that's what happened to IU, and that's what we're going to talk about, right?
We will get into IU, yes,
right.
as this emotional edition of Query
Emotions
Schultz.
are done now. I'm alive. I do have emotion within me. I do. I have feelings, darn it.
It reminds me of San Antonio, that Final Four trip where you and I stayed up all night talking and we laughed and we cried.
All night talking. We went to the Final Four. We stayed at a Howard Johnson. I slept on a shag carpeting so that you could have the bed. And then at 7:30 in the morning, I was awakened to something hitting me in the head, and it was the ironing board because you were ironing your shirt because you were supposed to meet Patrick Ewing at 1 in the afternoon.
So now I can say I've seen you choked up twice in your life.
Okay, let me tell you. Well, let me tell you. The 2 worst nights of sleep in my life, one of them was with 2 IV portals in my arms after a heart attack, and the other was the Howard Johnson in San Antonio with you.
Hey, that Hojo had bi-weekly cleanings in those rooms.
Yeah.
It's better than most places.
It was quite sterile, I'm sure.
We'll talk IU Penn State college football weekend and get into the Colts as well. Plenty still to come on Query and Schultz, ISC Sports Network.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
At an Indiana dairy farm, long workdays stretch into more labor after sunset. A newborn calf needs watching, barn needs cleaning, tractor needs some handiwork for tomorrow's tasks. Just like in your own home, the day's chores are never done until the family beds down for the night. Dairy farmers and their families share the same dream with all of us, that what we all do is worthwhile. Bringing to market pure, safe, and healthy dairy foods is what they do, from Indiana's dairy families to ours every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
Oh my God! We are ripping fast today. And how hard can it be, right? These are now selling for about $3,500. So we're back to our old ways of pulling rocks.
Act like idiots on camera, open cards, and talk about the hobby.
You can't get enough of them.
You can't get enough of us. Good one, J-Man.
This is the worst scandal. This
is worse than steroid. Not so fast.
Are you going to watch the XFL?
I'll probably watch a little bit of it.
You want to go through and pick some games?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I really don't.
Welcome back to Query and Schultz here on ISC Sports Network, brought to you by WGU Indiana. You know, since 2010, WGU has been offering affordable, fantastic, quality secondary education online for Hoosiers. And as a result of that, Derek, since 2010, all you've got to do is go to indiana.wgu.edu. I don't know if you know, Derek, but ambition never rests, right? And WGU wants to be able to help people get that accredited online degree. And all you have to do is go to indiana.wgu.edu, and you can find out where or how you can partake in their celebration of 10 years with a chance for $10,000 in scholarships.
10 fat stacks.
$10,000, Derek. That's all you have to say.
10K.
Yeah, 10K is fine. Yeah.
Great win for Indiana, historic win on Saturday night, 36-35. I want to talk about the game-winning play here in just a second, but first, if you guys haven't seen this, just to kind of give you an idea of how long it had been for Indiana, they had not beaten a top 10 opponent since 1987.
Now, let me ask you, their last top 10 opponent win, I remember in 1987 when Indiana defeated Ohio State. Earl Bruce called it the darkest day in Indiana history. I think 38-10 was the final. I could be wrong on that. But in that same season, they defeated Michigan at home. I think it was 14-10 maybe. Kai Steffi and I listened to the end of that game on the radio while watching his little brother Brandon play football. I remember that day well. I don't know which of those two was the top 10 win of which you speak.
Ohio State was the most recent one.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if Michigan was also in the top 10. Ohio State, if I'm not mistaken, was number 9 that year, just like Penn State was number 9, right?
8, I think.
Okay, whatever they were. But, when it was apparent that Indiana was not going to win the game, Penn State, all they had to do was run the clock out, and they accidentally scored the touchdown when they were up 1 and then went up 8, and, of course, the rest is history. But when that was going through, I was going through my Twitter mentions, and I had mentioned that Indiana just can't catch a break. Like, you would think that they would accidentally have won a game like this at some point in the last 33 years, and then, of course, they catch the biggest break that maybe Indiana football has ever caught, and that's the brain fart from Penn State and scoring that touchdown. And I think, catching a break, I don't know if I would say that. I think what happened with the Michael Penix play, you tell me if you disagree, to me, and it's hard to eliminate all bias because I want to see Indiana win the game, just like I want to see Purdue win, I want to see Notre Dame win. To me, it looked like the nose of the football. It definitely didn't hit the pylon before it hit the ground. The ball clearly hit out of bounds before it hit the pylon. But it looked to me like the nose of the football, the way that he had it, may have crossed the plane before it hit out of bounds. And I think it was one of those where if it was called no touchdown on the field, it would have stood.
Agreed.
But because it was called touchdown on the field, they just didn't have enough visual evidence to overturn it.
It is my understanding, and certainly my understanding, I still had morphine in me, right, for crying out loud when I was watching this. But
you're feeling real good then.
No, I didn't see most of the game, admittedly, but I did see literally that last play, and that was really about it. But I watched every angle of it, and I've watched it several times since. It's my understanding that scoring plays are automatically reviewed in the last 2 minutes, correct?
Yeah.
So when Penix goes in, the official knows, hey, if this is a scoring play, so it is automatically going to be reviewed if it's a scoring play. So the safe play from officiating standpoint, if it's razor thin, is to go ahead and call it a score because then it's automatically going to be reviewed. So they see it, and to the naked eye, I mean, in defense of any official, to the naked eye, it was so boom, 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 right? So your instinct is, I'm going to call this a score, knowing that means that we are then going to review it, okay? So officials call it a score, yes, 2-point conversion, allowing themselves the benefit then of the video review. But the video review then has to be indisputable in order to overturn the on-field call. So the on-field call necessitates the video review, but the on-field call of a score then has to be indisputable to be overturned. I don't know that it was indisputable, although to me,
it was as close as you can get.
It was as close as you can get. And I think the nose of the football and the plane is, in fact, the hanging chad, if you will. I thought very clearly the football was short of the pylon. But did the nose of it edge over the line before it came? I don't personally think so. However, if you have two programs, Indiana and Penn State, and there's one of the two that you feel like just needed a nudge of karma to go their way in the right direction, then after further review, advantage Indiana. Big win for and you know what, Derek? Let me say this. I'll eat crow here. I did not think when he got the job that Tom Allen was the guy for Indiana. I thought he was a really good high school coach and a really good coordinator that still had not learned to play the part. And at some point, you got to play the part and quit acting like you're thrilled just to be in the position. That's who he is. He's an emotional, on-the-sleeve guy, and that's paying off. And that team seems to buy into it, and good for them. It's a good story. It's a feel-good story, and Indiana's now got their highest ranking in 27 years, and Tom Allen looks to be the guy. And they're recruiting well as well.
The results speak for themselves. Not only the recruiting, but they had their best season in a quarter century last year, and now they've had their best win in 33 years last week. So, say what you want about Tom Allen. I think that I called him defensive Bill Lynch at some point when he got hired, which I really wanted to see him do well. I just thought that I don't know if he's ready for this job. I think he's great as a coordinator. I don't know if he's ready to be a head coach, but the results speak for himself. Did you see the locker room video?
Yes.
Where he gets all emotional, and I think he was planning on giving a speech, and basically it just turned into a huge celebration, which I thought was great. The program, to me, has turned the corner. Now, I would like to see where they go, but they're no longer a punchline. That was the first baby step that they needed to take, and they took that under Kevin Wilson. 5 or 6 years ago, they stopped being a punchline. Now, can they get to the point where no one's asking them to be Ohio State or Michigan? I think all of that, or even Penn State. Can they be Iowa? You know what I mean? Can they be even what Purdue was under Joe Tiller or Northwestern has become?
Truth be told, Derek, in the Big Ten, Iowa. I mean, Iowa's got some issues. And that program, whether it's true or just or not, I mean, you've got some issues with some allegations of some things that have gone on within Iowa football. And I think the world of Kirk Ferentz as a football coach, but it appears as though there are some players that don't think that, and that perhaps race comes into play there. So, Iowa's got some issues. Michigan State, which was kind of surprisingly the creme de la creme of the Big Ten 3 to 5 years ago, has really fallen off. So there is vacancy in rungs 2 or 3 in the Big Ten. There's room there. Yeah. Even Northwestern, who has been a nice, solid program, has had some down years here. Nebraska. I mean, come on. How about Nebraska? Like, credit us for saving the Big Ten season. Guess what? They went out and got absolutely shellacked.
Go take your spanking, Nebraska.
Yeah. No doubt.
I'm totally with you. And they've become – Michigan used to be it for me, but Nebraska has become the most insufferably arrogant fan base and program that I root against every week now.
Yeah, that's fair.
But, getting back to Indiana, now they've got a really interesting matchup because you mentioned Michigan State. Rutgers went and beat them. Now ended a 21-game losing streak.
Rutgers.
Rutgers' losing streak ended thanks to Rutgers winning.
That would be the other.
Rutgers possessive. They possessed a long losing streak, but the program itself is Rutgers.
No, the program is Rutgers with an S.
Rutgers, yes.
They've earned the S, Derek. They beat Michigan State.
A Michigan State team that's cratering. Rome wasn't built in a day, Jake. So let's see where this goes for Rutgers.
So if Rutgers defeats Indiana, what will you call them?
I will begin the process of adding the S back on Rutgers if they were to beat Indiana.
It is absurd they're in the Big Ten.
It really is. But you know what? Nebraska was billed to be this powerhouse program, and they haven't been. Basketball, they've had some respectable seasons at the very least, but at least you knew what you were signing up for with Rutgers. And at the very least, too, for them, it looks like their men's basketball and football programs are finally on an upward trajectory again. Let's shift over to Purdue as well, because I don't want to completely overshadow what Purdue did. I thought it was really important for them to win a coin flip game. That was a 50-50 game. When you looked at the schedule, you thought to yourself, okay, there are some games that they're going to win here, but there are some that you're like, this could kind of go either way. Really important for them to come out and not only win the way that they did, but Aiden O'Connell, another game-winning drive. He's now had 3 in just 7 games. And I was having a conversation with a Purdue buddy of mine. All the talk after the game was, well, Purdue won without its coach and its best player. And I thought to myself, are we sure that Purdue won without its best player?
Right.
Because I love Rondale Moore, but at this point, and David Bell makes it look so easy that you don't even really appreciate what he's doing. You know how many times he's won Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week, by the way?
5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of ruined it that you guessed
Why?
it right
That was
off
a
the
total
bat.
guess. It was a wonderful guess.
Can we take that out in post?
How about
because I want you to
guess.
be like 2, and then I'll be like,
guess.
no, get this, 5.
Derek, I don't know if you know this or not.
It doesn't add emphasis.
I don't know if you know this or not, but I cheated death, and as a result of that, I'm now a savant.
Okay, we've got like a couple day more window of this, but I don't want this to be like the thing.
It's pretty exhausted.
That overtakes the show.
It's pretty exhausted.
Because you guys know, longtime listeners of this show, is we hate beating dead horses. We like to immediately move on to things.
Mm-hmm. You calling it beating dead horses is actually in itself kind of a dead horse. Here's the thing, Derek. David Bell, to me, Rondale Moore probably is the more dangerous weapon, except for I think you have to more specifically cater to things to allow that weapon to be unleashed. David Bell, does that make sense what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you get both of them in open space on trickery, and Rondale Moore's electric. But in terms of just every play execution, David Bell is probably the bigger talent. And I know that sounds crazy because Rondale Moore may well be a first-round pick. But David Bell, I think you have to rely less on scheme with David Bell. More preparation goes into getting Rondale Moore to use, but Rondale Moore with that preparation might have the bigger payoff. But David Bell, one play to the next, gives you more. He's a wonderful player.
Yeah, and the good news for Purdue, and I'm looking it up right now to make sure that I have it all right. You know, it's a short schedule this year with just the 8 games, but I believe their 2 crossover games are Indiana and the Bucket game, and then I think it's Rutgers. So they miss Ohio State, they miss Michigan, they miss Penn State. It's a very manageable schedule. We all know that the West is the lesser division. The West has been the lesser division for, 5, 6, 7 seasons, however long it's been now, because the people that reorganized the Big Ten made a huge mental error in putting Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan all together. Like that was an indefensible. I don't care what their rationale was about Nebraska or anything like that. That was an indefensible move for them to do that. But Purdue is the beneficiary of that. And I think you could have – I'm not going to get too far cart ahead of the horse here. I don't think Indiana and Purdue are going to be undefeated playing for a Rose Bowl berth. You know what I mean? In the final game or anything like that. But I do think that there could be something fairly significant on the line for both of those teams. I'm expecting Purdue, and we haven't really talked about them because they were kind of disappointing in that follow-up year for Jeff Brom. I'm expecting Purdue to have a really nice bounce-back season this year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Look, it's exciting for both programs, right? And the fact that, this is a year to get some footing underneath them. Now, the other team in the state in terms of Division I college football, really strong performance for Notre Dame.
Yeah, and finally, we talked about it last week where they were very fortunate to beat Louisville. And they just crushed Pitt. And I don't think Pitt's actually that bad. Their rush defense came in number 1 in the country. They're a competent team, but they made a ton of mistakes. They allowed Notre Dame to block a punt and a bunch of turnovers. But it was nice to see Notre Dame finally look like the number 3 team in the country against an inferior opponent.
Will Notre Dame beat Clemson?
No. Are you going to ask me this every week?
Yes.
No, they're not going to beat Clemson. I am hopeful that they're going to be competitive against Clemson because even just doing that, I think, would be a step in the right direction for Notre Dame. In the regular season, they've had close games. They gave Georgia a nice game last year in Athens.
They did. Yep.
They gave Georgia a great game in South Bend. That was a year Georgia played for the national championship, and Notre Dame only lost by 1. Clemson Notre Dame from 2015 was a great game. Went into overtime. Remember in the rain.
That's right. Yep.
So in the regular season, Notre Dame has done okay in these sort of matchups, but if they just go and get their doors blown off again, it's almost like the other games don't matter. Everybody's just circled and focusing on that one.
What are we doing next?
We're going to talk Colts and NFL.
Okay.
Colts were in the bye week, but
they
were
awards to give away later.
Big winners. Yes. Okay. American Dairy Association Indiana, Winners Drink Milk, winner of the week.
Derek, I've got my mask.
Also, we've got the shop and our Bite or Bowl Bleep, which they happily sponsor.
Right,
so we'll get to all of that when we return. It's Query and Schultz on ISC Sports Network.
Brewer jams it home.
That ball wiggles in and into the back of the net.
A little fireworks in the first half. Throw it up for Tillman. Whoa, my goodness.
122-6-0 for Penn.
Oh, what a swim!
6 of them.
Indiana dairy farmers provide us with safe, pure foods for our tables. A responsibility that takes intuition, resolve, and determination to make sure their milk is good for you and delicious to taste. Their connection with our community runs deep, passed down through the generations, ensuring that milk is always available at your store. It's not easy being a dairy farmer, but the rewards have special meaning when you can feed Indiana's families every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
Back to Query and Schultz. You know, since 2011, the shop has been bringing awesome hometown apparel here to the great folks of Central Indiana from a retro standpoint, or whether it be your favorite team, Indiana, Purdue, Butler, Ball State, they've got it all. And then, of course, just simply nostalgic shirts of retro Indianapolis. I need to get a Joe Amalia's one because that was my very first job, Derek. I worked there with Ty Gehrig. And not only did we work together stocking things at Joe Amalia's, Ty, like myself, a heart attack survivor. I don't think it was because of the Jell-O boxes we had to front. But nonetheless, Ty and I have a second bond. But you can see right here, Burger Chef, Indianapolis, Winners Drink Milk, American Dairy Association, Busch Stadium. Absolutely love the shop. You can find them at theshopindy.com, where you can use the code word, the ridiculous word Derek made up of Tutties.
Hell yeah.
That is the code word for 20% off. Find it at theshopindy.com, 920 Broadwell Avenue, or as well in Clay Terrace.
Also, Jake, I was told, and thanks to viewer/listener Scott, who's been with us for a long time, I said last week that I was trying to get with Brian and Alex to see if we could do variations of Tutties. You know, sometimes on websites you type in, you can own a bunch of different domain names, like Indy500.com and IMS.com and all of that all go under the same umbrella. He tried to type in Tud Bombs, TUDDBOMBS, and that did not work for the 20% discount. So please make sure that it's Tuddies, TUDDIES. Hopefully soon we'll have Tud Bombs as well, or just Tuds.
Okay.
Colts did not score any Tuds this week.
That's right.
They were on bye, but they were big winners because everyone else in the AFC South lost.
How about that?
Including the Titans, who finally seemed to not catch a break in their game against the Steelers. But Jacksonville and Houston, I think we can now – I'm always hesitant to do this because remember when the Colts came back from 1-5 a couple of years – what was that, 2018?
Right.
I'm always hesitant to write teams off. The NFL can change. Clearly at this point, Jacksonville and Houston are not going to be a factor in the division race.
Clearly at this
or
point.
Playoff teams.
But, you know, with Tennessee – you look at the Titans and you say, well, okay, maybe Tennessee's come back down to earth. Or maybe, Derek, it is that Pittsburgh's
I think Tennessee's fine. I think it's far more the latter.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's really darn good.
Tennessee is going to be a team to beat and a team to be reckoned with for sure. And they got in that early hole and they fought back and had some chances to win that game. But now you got to wonder, you know, where you put Pittsburgh, because I feel like everybody knew Kansas City was going to be good, right? Everybody knew Seattle was going to be good.
I think right now they're better than Kansas City.
They're the only team without a loss. They're the
Okay.
lone unbeaten.
In
Pittsburgh
the AFC, Pittsburgh.
They've beaten a bunch of buster teams, though, before this week.
Pittsburgh, Kansas City, Baltimore's obviously very good, right?
Buffalo, I still think is very good.
I think Buffalo's good. You know, to me, like to go back to our Big Ten conversation, to me, Pittsburgh, Kansas City is clearly like the Ohio State, although there seems in the Big Ten to be a pretty big drop-off after Ohio State. But Ohio State,
Wisconsin.
Michigan, Wisconsin would be like Baltimore, right? They're always around. Buffalo is like in that Iowa, Michigan State of normal years, in my opinion. Who else are we missing here in terms of the AFC? Well, Tennessee.
Yeah, I don't know.
And the Colts are right there.
I don't think you put the Raiders there. In the NFC now, at this point, you basically have the entire NFC West and Green Bay, and that's kind of it.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Because the East is terrible, and I don't know. I shouldn't say that. Tampa Bay has been very impressive the last 2 weeks, and they're now 5-2. So I think you have to throw the Bucs in the mix. But the rest of I don't know what to make of New Orleans or Carolina. Like the rest of that division is a mystery.
We talked a week ago about teams in the NFL that were pretty good, and I think we both overlooked. And I was thinking of them, but I don't think we mentioned Arizona's decent.
Yeah.
Kyler Murray looks to be a really promising young player, and when you've got DeAndre Hopkins, you can move the football.
Yeah, I love that slow motion, high def, focused in viewpoint. Did you see on the replay on Sunday night or whatever it was, Monday Night Football, where he sees that Hopkins is wide open and he gets this big grin, like me seeing you alive at the beginning of the show, gets this big grin on his face before he uncorks that ball. But Arizona, I think, clearly has been the surprise of the league, right? Because everybody else that is good or great, we expect it to be good or great.
And the other surprise, I think, just based on kind of pedigree, in that division as I thought San Francisco would have been kind of where Arizona is, and Arizona would be down where San Francisco is.
They've rebounded a little bit here recently.
And they've been very
and
injured.
The
in
injury
San
situation,
Francisco's defense, they've been very hurt.
It's been a really bad luck situation.
You like their uniforms,
but
right?
I love iconic to me, and I hate the Niners, but I love the red.
Is
and
it the gold or the red, or what is it?
All of it.
Really?
It's just beautiful. It's a beautiful comment. Like, describe this. Like, it's hard to describe. It just works. You know what I mean? Like, my look, it's people are attracted to it.
Actually, I don't know if you know this or not, Derek, but I almost didn't make it to 49ers.
That's right, yeah.
Oh, my.
Man, all these jokes we could have used if you would have died.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure you would have, right?
Yeah.
Would you have done a show this week if I died?
Yeah. I mean, the show must go on. I was assuming that I was going to give the eulogy, so I would have had to prepare for that.
Sure. They did ask me if I had a living will.
Do you?
Well, I don't have any possessions.
Well, you've got the Manson postcard.
Yeah, that's right.
You got your Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Yeah.
The 2-bedroom apartment where you live alone. Well, you rent that, though, right?
Yep.
What about the mattress on the floor? Does that have any value in that?
That's a good question.
Apartment?
I don't think so.
There's a jar of mustard in the fridge.
Yeah, Vegemite.
That's long.
I got
expired.
a tube of Vegemite in there.
Yeah, I didn't actually think about that.
Yeah.
No, but knowing you and the way that you are about your finances, I know you've hoarded away a pile of money. It's probably buried somewhere in your 401k and all of that. So that has to go to somebody.
Charities, Derek. Charities.
You mentioned Mac being a hero. How about the fact that he mentioned, we always kind of bust your chops about this, but you've been dating Shannon forever, for like 20 years. He had the wherewithal to tell the people at Community North that she was your fiance, so she could come that night and visit.
They told me, they said, hey, just so you know, you're out of the procedure, and, we're going to do some resting here, and your fiance's on the way. And I said, have you talked to her?
Something I don't know.
And they said, well, no, we haven't talked to her yet. And my friend Mac Engel did have the wherewithal. Sorry to Community North for pulling one on you. But he knew that, especially in this COVID environment, that somebody just coming in and saying, that's my boyfriend, it would be more difficult for her to get back to be able to see me. So he said, hey, his fiance is on the way. And so she was able to come back, which I very much appreciated. Also, the visiting hours on Friday morning were from 8 to 10 a.m., and Shannon put in for my parents to be, you are allowed 2 visitors per session. My parents got the 8 to 10 slot on Friday, Eric, rolled into my room at 9:52.
Perfect.
Yep. Gave themselves 8 minutes to come by and say, hi, son. Realize you almost died. Listen, just want to let you know. Also, we got some weird mail for you. Do you need us to keep that or throw it out?
Like we said, the Corys are veterans with this. So this is old hat. Jake's fine. This is only heart attack number 1.
Literally, my mom's like, we were on our way anyway up here to the CVS place to get your dad some cholesterol meds, so we stopped by to say hi. Thanks.
Parting shot here on the NFL, too. Colts and Lions. Kind of another one, and we mentioned this last week. Kind of a must-win, right, with what they have coming up, especially in the month of November.
Dr. Mottman, my cardiologist, Derek, I asked him during all of this going on who his favorite NFL team is, and he said he grew up a Lions fan.
Oh, boy.
And I said, you should take a picture of me right now. This was like, as they're getting ready to take me in, I said, take a picture of me right now. He's like, why? And I said, because the rest of your life, when people ask you what it was like to be a fan of the 2012 Lions, you can show them a picture of me right now and say that pretty much personifies exactly what it was like. Was it 12 or 11 when or 8, whatever it was when they were, whatever year they were 0-16?
Yeah, I think it might have been 08.
08, I think
that they were 0-16.
Right. Yeah,
because Orlovsky, remember that was pre.
We talked about Orlovsky as the guy was putting the balloon through my arm.
Yeah,
I haven't shown you my bruise.
The pride of Shelton, Connecticut.
Do you like my bruise?
My best friend in high school picked him off twice in a
scrimmage. Are you ignoring my bruise?
That makes me really uncomfortable. Needles and any sort of like blood or bruising from that.
I understand.
I'm happy you're alive, but I don't want to look at it.
We have awards to give away next, do we not?
Well, we got to do Bite or Bull Bleep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, great.
Sorry, I'll give you a pass.
This is the wildly unpopular and shockingly sponsored by the Shop Indie. Again, 920 Broadwell Avenue. The Shop at Clay Terrace in Carmel or theshopindie.com. Buy it or Bull Schultz. Very simple. Derek makes a statement, and then I say whether I buy it or I consider it to be Bull Schultz.
You ready?
Yes.
Statement number 1, the Steelers should be the new Super Bowl favorites moving forward. Buy it or Bull Bleep.
I buy that. I think that they have a really good defense. They've got a quarterback who's been there and is experienced. They have weapons.
Oh, their weapons are stupid.
Yeah.
You just wish the Colts could borrow one of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I buy it right
Juju
now.
For a week.
It changes week to week, Derek, as we've talked about. The NFL season literally is like kind of 4 quarters. And, I know it's weird to think that we're as far into it as we are, but so much can happen with injuries and everything else. But I think whenever we have these conversations, we're assuming that everyone is staying healthy where they are. I buy that.
Yeah, I'm not ready to go there yet with the Steelers. Their schedule hasn't been great. They were impressive against Tennessee, and they've been impressive against some of these other teams. I still think it's Kansas City. I still think it's Kansas City until somebody proves otherwise. I mean, they just dismember people like what they did to Denver the other night. It's still Kansas City to me, but I think what's really interesting about this 2020 NFL season, we knew that there'd be some quirks. There doesn't feel like to be much of a middle this year in the NFL. You're either really good or you're terrible.
Yeah, you're right.
And
we've seen that in years past.
There are, the Bears, the Colts, the Browns are kind of in a little bit of a purgatory of a middle, but the rest of the league, it seems to be clearly separated, and it's rare that we're at the midpoint of the season, you feel like you know who everybody is.
Right.
But I still think it's Kansas City, so I'm going to say bull bleep. Statement 2, IU will have a better football season this year than Purdue. Buy it or bull bleep? You would have said buy it last year for sure.
Boy, that is really hard. I think Purdue's – I'm going to say bull Schultz, and before people jump down my neck here, only because I think Purdue's schedule is more favorable. Indiana might be slightly the better team, and Indiana may beat Purdue in the bucket game, but I think Purdue's schedule is more favorable.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, one of Indiana's crossover games is Wisconsin. So not only do you get Ohio State, Michigan, all the East teams, but you also get the best team.
I mean, it's fun to be having this conversation, right? About, wow, I mean, they're both decent, so
right.
who knows which is better.
I'm looking at it here, at Illinois, Northwestern, Minnesota, Rutgers, Nebraska, all those games are very winnable. At Wisconsin is going to be tough because Wisconsin has just taken the state of Indiana in college football and stuck it right in a trash can for like the better part of the last 20 years. But that bucket game could be very interesting. It's so weird to see the little 17 next to Indiana.
Yeah.
Like, what? Is that a mistake?
You're like 1-7. What?
I'm going to say yes. I think, Jake, what you might end up happening, what you might see end up happening is Purdue going 6-2 or 5-3, and Indiana or Purdue going 6-2 and Indiana going 5-3, just because the schedules are that unbalanced. I think pound for pound, those teams are just about dead even talent-wise, even though Indiana's got legitimate talent. And that's another thing that has really changed. Michael Penix makes that play. Indiana hasn't had somebody that can make that play in 20 years.
Correct.
It was
I
incredible.
don't know about that. Kellen Lewis could have made that play.
That's fair. And Nate Sudfeld, was a very good player. That defense was just terrible.
What year was Randall L?
Well, 20 years ago. Randall L graduated 01.
Did he really?
Mm-hmm. Well, he graduated 02. It was the 01 season.
So that's within 20 years.
Again, I'll let some of this pass because I'm happy to see you. And
you said they haven't had anybody within 20 years. Off the top of my head right here. Right here.
20-ish years, Jake. That's just like,
Immediately come up with two names right there.
You said the winless Lions were 2012, and I didn't jump down your neck on that. So
I'm just saying.
I'm happy the heart stent's in there, but
I
was hoping this would be a new lease on life, and you treat me a little bit better. Actually, this is a great segue to our last one. Statement 3, Jake's miraculous comeback from a massive heart attack is now the biggest miracle associated with Query and Schultz.
1,000% buy it.
Well,
the difference being I'm not going to talk about it every 3 weeks.
Here's the thing, because some people may not know. Obviously, Jake's recovery and him being here today is a miracle. Like, I'm not disputing that that's a miracle. There have been other things that have been brought up on the show where you've been like, that's a miracle. I'm like, it's not a miracle. 1983, medical science was a lot different than what it is now. You couldn't just walk in and get a stent and do all of that in 1983. They had horse and buggies and all of that. I was a premature triplet then. So at least you had 48 years of your life. God forbid, and thank God that you're still here. At least you would have had a life to live. Doctors told my parents, there is going to be no Derek Schultz. And can you imagine if there was no Derek Schultz at all, the void that would leave, not only in 2 different regions of the country, in southwestern Connecticut and then, of course, in central Indiana. Mm-hmm. But this show's all over the globe. So, look, it's not a competition. You're my best friend. I'm real happy that you're here and that you're alive. It's just kind of a different sort of miracle because it saved your life. I was never supposed to have a life. So you guys just do the math at home, which you think is more.
Are we still sure you
special?
Do?
Oh, I very much have a life. Yes.
Okay. You and your Beanie Babies and your little toy Patrick Ewing figures. Quite the life.
We've been binging Schitt's Creek for weeks now. And
Watch
I've
your
been
language.
Going to bed at SCHITTS. That's what it's called.
Okay.
Great show, by the way, if you've not given that a
Have
chance.
you watched Challenger?
Yeah. We talked about that, I feel like, on the show.
Have you watched Kaminsky Method?
No.
Great show.
Yeah.
Great show.
There are some other ones that I want to catch up with on, too.
Okay.
We got awards to give away. As we wrap up next with our friends at the American Dairy Association Indiana, Winners Drink Milk, Winners of the Week.
Excellent.
And we'll wrap up with that when Query and Schultz continues on ISC Sports Network.
Indiana Dairy Farm, long workdays stretch into more labor after sunset. A newborn calf needs watching. Barn needs cleaning. Tractor needs some handiwork for tomorrow's tasks. Just like in your own home, the day's chores are never done until the family beds down for the night. Dairy farmers and their families share the same dream with all of us, that what we all do is worthwhile. Bringing to market pure, safe, and healthy dairy foods is what they do, from Indiana's dairy families to ours every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
The drive, the take, fouled, and it goes!
Lobbing it to the back of the end zone. They're going to say it's a touchdown.
Left foot gets through. Goal for Vargas. Hamilton will score!
Welcome back. Final time, in fact. Query and Schultz here on ISC Sports Network, along with a very much alive Jay Query. I'm Derek Schultz. Time for our American Dairy Association Winners Drink Milk, Winners of the Week. In fact, speaking of our friends at American Dairy Association Indiana,
Derek.
I want to give you the milk facts.
Okay.
They love it. All of our viewers and
can I chug
listeners
some chocolate milk?
have been like, we want Schultz to do the milk facts every single week. Chocolate milk, which Jake is drinking right now, chugging right now, contains more carbohydrates than regular milk, and 1 8-ounce serving of low-fat chocolate milk has as much calcium as 10 cups of raw spinach, as much potassium as a banana, as much vitamin A as 2 boiled eggs. That's obviously a lot of recovery tuition in 8 ounces of deliciousness. So when your workout is done, but your body isn't refueled with chocolate milk, which I was already doing before I knew all these milk facts. Mm-hmm. Chocolate milk is an awesome post-recovery pick-me-up. Love it.
No question.
Go throw your ish around, come back,
Your ish.
slam a chocolate milk, get in front of the mirror. A little bit of that.
Okay.
Little
You
bit
know
of
who's
all
been
that.
doing a lot of that? Our friend and loyal supporter, Scotty Russa. That dude's shredded.
Yeah. He's
throwing
got
his-
veins on his veins.
Yeah, he's been throwing his ish around.
He's at
yeah.
that point. Yeah, I don't want to get that big. Really, I've always just been looking for tone instead
Okay.
of bulk. So that's
Okay.
what I go for
Right,
more
okay.
than anything else.
Sure,
You guys know what I'm talking about.
yeah. Sure.
You guys see it.
Who are you nominating, Derek, or would you like me to go
Can
first?
Can I take a?
Okay.
You go first. I'm going to chug a milk.
I will nominate Tom Allen. I mentioned it earlier, the Indiana football coach. Look, he had coached at Ben Davis High School. We know that he was a coordinator at Ole Miss when Indiana got him. Circumstances led to Indiana naming Tom Allen their head coach. I was cynical about it. I was not sold. I felt like there was just this element of almost a cheesy and false bravado of just being a little bit too excited to be there. And at some point, if you're going to be one of the big boys, you got to act like you belong. And look, he's proven me wrong. Tom Allen's done a nice job. They've increased the recruiting. We saw the results coming to that. Not only last year, I know they didn't win the bowl game, but to elevate Indiana's profile, and then getting the first win over a top 10 ranked team in 33 years for the program is big for Indiana. I will give it Tom Allen. Winners drink milk. You're the winner of the week.
I think it's obvious who my winner of the week is going to be. I mean, it's a miracle that he's even here with everything that he's been through, not only over the last week, but really over the last couple of years. And that's Tom Brady, the quarterback of the my winner of the week is Jake Query. Because you're here, miraculous comeback, and it was a scary and sudden situation. It's funny, you guys have heard us talk about Caleb, our former enthusiastic intern. Well, he's still enthusiastic, a former intern, no longer because we don't work at the radio station anymore, but he was texting me on Saturday night, and he was like, how are you feeling, whatever. I'm like, it's scary and all that. And he's like, are you thinking of just show memories when you heard that Jake was on Death's Door? And I'm like, no, man, I'm not thinking of the show. When something like this happens to somebody that you're close to, you think of the friend moments. Like you think of the being on Bourbon Street at 3 a.m. during the Final Four in 2012 and having absolutely what to this day is the worst slice of pizza I've ever had in my life from that methed out pizza cook.
Yeah.
It was the only place that was serving food. Everything else was slanging drinks, and we were so hungry, and we go in there and get pizza in Louisiana, and it was horrible. It was barely edible.
I think
but
that
this dude
fella
was back there doing this the entire time with a bandana.
That fella was on something, was he not?
Yeah. I mean, you think about that. I thought about when we were at Keystone Sports Review 2 or 3 days after we had gotten laid off, and I was eating chili, and you were housing some wings, and we were talking about, what are we going to do? Like, are we going to still do a show together?
I was probably eating toast and cottage cheese.
Oh, I think you were letting yourself celebrate a little bit and have a little.
That we were free.
KSR wings, but those are the things that you think of. I told you in our first phone conversation after it happened, which was Saturday. Outside of my wife, you're the person that I've spent the most time with over the last 10 years.
I mean, at minimum 20 hours a week, right?
Yeah, and when stuff would happen to me. Outside of maybe Stolman, who was my best man at my wedding.
Is that the guy that wanted to fight me?
No, that was Eric.
Okay.
And Eric's one of my closest friends, too. The first person that I want to tell stuff to is you.
Well,
when I call you or text you. So, I'm not going to get all emotional and all of that. But, you and I, all kidding aside, have become close, and when something like that happens to somebody that's close to you, it's an emotional thing. But thank God your mom sent me the awkward Facebook message because I knew everything was going to be okay. Because if I would have just seen massive heart attack, it would have been really tough to deal with.
Actually, Derek, I probably should have said Janelle, Linda, Deetra, Lauren, Tabitha, Dr. Mottman, and then as well Enrique, Megan, Sandra, and Kevin, all at the Community North Heart Hospital. Those are my true winners of the week, because all of them collectively, in terms of the way they work as a team, I've covered sports for a long time. I don't know that I've ever seen a team that was that precise. They're my winners.
Heroes, really.
Totally.
Yeah, healthcare workers, it's unbelievable what they do. And we're going to still continue, unfortunately, to need them, with what this country is going through, for sure. We'll be back next week. We'll recap Colts and Lions, and we'll probably put to bed all the hard stuff. We'll get back to
I hope so.
The normal stuff.
I hope so.
The praise and all of that for Jake. I mean, it's great that he lived, but come on. That stuff has an expiration date, right?
It does.
Thanks to all of our great sponsors. Thanks to the entire crew here at ISC Sports Network. For Jake Query, I'm Derek Schultz. We will see you next time.
Indiana Dairy Farm, long workdays stretch into more labor after sunset. A newborn calf needs watching, barn needs cleaning, tractor needs some handiwork for tomorrow's tasks. Just like in your own home, the day's chores are never done until the family beds down for the night. Dairy farmers and their families share the same dream with all of us, that what we all do is worthwhile. Bringing to market pure, safe, and healthy dairy foods is what they do, from Indiana's dairy families to ours every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
You're watching Query and Schultz on the ISC Sports Network.
All right, one more time.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
Oh my God! We are ripping fast today. And how hard can it be, right? These are now selling for about $3,500. So we're back to our old ways of pulling rocks. Act like idiots on camera, open cards, and talk about the hobby.